Welcome to Kevin Deal Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, I'm going to give you some tips for traveling as a photographer. I'm pleased to announce that I'm launching 3 Capture One style packs: Metamorphic Portraits, The Sound of Silver, and Rangefinder. These will eventually also be available for Lightroom, so if you go to kevindealphotography.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and join my mailing list, I promise I won't send you spam, but I will let you know the second these release. And now, on to today's episode. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. So over the years, I have found myself traveling more and more for commercial photography work. And as I get older, I want to take less and less bags. I want to get into a city and I want to get out of a city. But when I've traveled with my bag in the past, I have made mistakes, I have learned from those mistakes, and I have applied those mistakes to my travel setup moving forward. So if you are watching today's episode and you get into traveling with your photography gear, maybe you'll learn something. But if you're watching this as a seasoned photographer yourself and you have a lot of experience traveling with your bags, do leave your tips in the comments below, because I am only telling the audience that is watching this video what I've learned, but you may actually have better insight than me, or insight that I haven't thought of, and I want to learn and grow. So I actually want to steal whatever you put in the comments and apply it to what I do if I think it's a good idea. So the very first thing I want to talk about, the very first tip I want to talk about if you are the traveling photographer, is to remind you that lens caps come off your lenses. Now, there's more to it than just that. I'm just using that as a really clever title, but I use that from a point of experience because I have a Canon RF 28-70 f2 with a 95 millimeter filter thread. It's an enormous filter size. It's an enormous piece of glass. And I've had that lens cap come off inside my bag. Not a big deal if it's just brushing up against your dividers. The problem is that inexperienced travelers don't secure things down. So a AA battery could roll around in your bag as it's getting tossed around in the back of your car, as you're moving around with it on your shoulders. And unfortunately, if you end up getting it checked, it's definitely not going to get treated with respect there. And so you have this AA battery moving around. You have this lens cap that's falling off, so you have this exposed piece of glass, and then of course that male end of that AA battery hits your piece of glass, it moves around in your bag, it scratches up that piece of glass, and now you've got yourself like a $600 or a $700 repair on your hands to replace that front element of your really expensive lens. And another thing I've learned is anytime any manufacturer gives you a pouch for, say, your lens, or maybe a pouch to put a small LED light in, keep it in that pouch, because these screens can get scratched up by loose things moving around in your bag. Number 2, never be in a hurry when you're traveling with your bag. What do I mean? Well, when you're on the road, you tend to get more tired, but this could also apply to you after a really long session. When you're traveling with your bag, take a step back, look at your bag, make sure that all the compartments are zipped up, because twice I've had fatal errors that have one time destroyed a lens and another time I got extremely lucky. So I went on an American Southwest trip with my dad, and we were in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I had a backpack that had a top compartment and a side compartment. And I was extremely tired after a long day of shooting. And I left that side compartment open. And guess what happened? That Canon EF70-200 f4 just rolled out of the side of my bag, hit that parking lot, and it absolutely destroyed the front element. And I pretty much had myself a paperweight. So that was one example. Another example was I had a bag that had an upper and a lower compartment. And there was a big gap between the upper and lower compartment that became unvelcroed. And unbeknownst to me, the bottom compartment was open. I put my R5 and an RF 85mm into the top compartment. It just fell out of my bag, slammed onto my driveway, and all my neighbors learned some new words that came out of my mouth because I was terrified. Now, luckily for me, both the camera and the lens ended up being okay, just a little bit of minor cosmetic stuff to it, but in general, it ended up working out. But the point being is that when you are traveling, Do not be in a hurry. Make sure all your compartments are closed. Make sure all your big zippers are closed up, because the last thing you want is for your entire camera rig to just fall out of your backpack because you weren't paying attention and you put it over your shoulders. Number 3, always force yourself to remove something when you're packing. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, over time, I have always been an overpacker. And as a result, I end up having to go to baggage claim. But as I get older and older, I despise baggage claim. I want to get in and out of a city quickly. So what I do is I evaluate my situation. Do I need to take both a 24-70 and a 50mm lens when there's overlap there? Am I really going to be shooting at a more open aperture than, say, 2.8, or in the case of my 28-70 f2? And if you think you can get away with it, I always recommend going with the less is more over the pack every single thing you could possibly need at every single time. I understand the idea of being prepared. I myself have subscribed to that theory for years. However, as I get older, I'm definitely leaning more toward do more with less. I can absolutely take amazing shots at f2.8. I don't necessarily always have to take them at 1.2. And then my bag lightens. And of course, I can replace that 50mm 1.2 lens with maybe another day or two's worth of clothes. Number 4, always have spares, spare batteries, spare SD cards, and of course, bring your DC brick with you to charge your phone. And of course, the reason you do this should be self-explanatory, but you know you're going to be out in a remote place, you're going to have an SD card get corrupted, and not only are you going to be freaking out and in a panic, you're going to want to know exactly where it is. So you have a special place in your bag where you find that SD card, or maybe for whatever reason, one of your batteries decides it's going to stop working and it's going to drain really fast and you're going to have a crisis on your hands. So you always want to have a spare battery or two when you're working. Of course, when I travel, I take like 4 or 5 batteries with me. That is the one place where I still overpack, but you definitely want to take those spares with you because you will find yourself up the creek without a paddle. And lastly, you need to have a method to your madness with your bag. Pack your bag the same way every time. That way you know where things are. That way you have a special place. That way you can plan out shoots better. Always keep your batteries in the same spot. Always keep your camera in the same spot. Try to make sure that your bag has a method to it, because you are inevitably going to find yourself in a situation where you're going to be in a panic and you need to get to things quickly. Additionally, you will learn from that and you will figure out different ways you can load out your bag based on the fact that you know how much can fit in one specific area. You can figure out combinations to better utilize efficiency within your bag. I also recommend you have bags of different sizes. I have sling bags, I have day packs, and I have traveling bags. Now, the reason why I recommend you have these bags at different sizes is because you're going to have different sized jobs. But another thing I like to do is I like to take my little sling bags and I like to pack them inside my big pack. That way, when I get to my destination, if I want to go do a very small photography job and I don't want to take my entire rig with me, I can just take a little loadout into my sling bag and go shoot. Sometimes I just want to shoot street photography in a town, or sometimes I have a quick assignment within a town where I just need to do a very quick shoot and I don't need to take all of my equipment with me. And so that's definitely something to keep in mind, is definitely have multiple bags if you can afford it, but make sure you take the time to learn which bags work for you. I've gone through several over the years, and chances are if you take photography super seriously, you're going to find yourself going through several as well. Now, there is going to be one bonus tip I want to give you if you are traveling, and that is to be aware of your surroundings. Well, what do I mean by that? If you have certain compartments in your backpack where you keep things that are super important to you, maybe they're right behind your back, maybe not somewhere where somebody could easily access that, do keep that in mind when you're traveling. And also, as I had already brought up, when I go out and I do small excursions, I bring a smaller pack with me because if somebody robs me, I don't want them to take all of my gear. I'd rather have them take some of my gear. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you do have those smaller day packs, I would say make them more discreet. Don't use brand names. So like I actually use a Peter McKinnon backpack, and that's great. It's an awesome backpack for my main travel. But Peter McKinnon has 5 million plus followers on YouTube. He's actually a pretty well-known name. So it is a type of backpack that advertises, look at me, I'm a photographer, I have a ton of gear in here. So if you get a bag that stands out a little bit less, something that makes it look like you're going to class as a college student, and you keep all your camera gear in that versus something that is clearly marketed as rob me, that, or a Pelican case or something like that, that's probably going to put you in the crosshairs of somebody you don't want to be in the crosshairs of. So yes, I do use the McKinnon 35-liter nomadic bag to get in and out of airports, but oftentimes when I get to my destination, I leave this bag in my hotel hotel room, and sometimes sling bags aren't big enough. So I'll take a small bag like this Brevitē Jumper with me, because when you take a look at it, it doesn't advertise, look at me, I have $20,000 worth of camera gear in it. So I did do a review of this bag. You can check out a link in the description below, but really any bag that looks like this will do. Just get you something that doesn't stand out and you'll be good to go. So when you're on the road, do exercise common sense. That does it for today's episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today. What methods do you use when you're on the road to make your bag more efficient? What methods do you use to get in and out of a city very quickly? Tell me about that in the comments below, and of course I want everybody else to see that. And if you like this channel, I humbly ask you to click the subscribe button below. And if you like my opinions on photography and videography related subjects, I highly recommend you go check out my other YouTube channel and my podcast on Apple and Spotify, the F11 Photography Podcast. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.